Hello, everybody. Hello, masters of your own destiny. What's going on? Yes, I'm laughing because I'm happy. I'm in my happy place, which is the basement of my house. Why? Because I'm going to start a new episode of Ron Suarez Basement, a podcast that we create to build bridges between those experts working behind some of your favorite TV shows and film, Broadway show, plays, artists, musicians, you name it. We have it here in the basement, and you, the audience. It's all about that connection and to be able to bring you this very educational and informative conversation with these experts. I want to thank to WCNY PBS in Central New York for the partnership and Central New York Arts. It's thanks to these two no-profit organizations that we can come to you every other week. So thank you so much for the trust. And of course, you, the audience, thank you. I mean, we do this because of you guys. Whoever is listening in the other side, I thank you for listening and to be part of our family. I want to tell you that if you visit FS Basement, that's our home in the internet, you will find all past episodes of Ron Suarez Basement in audio and in video, some really cool educational tools, some tips about podcasting, but production of podcasting, production of television, production of films. So it's a really good place to be educated and informed about the industry that you love so much, like I do, of visual storytelling. So fsbasement.com, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us in all social media. Today, talking about an expert. We're going to be talking about television and film directing because we have a very talented director in the basement. We talk about Kat Coiro. She is the director behind some of the episodes of Matlock, the new Matlock with Kathy Bates. I cannot wait to pick her brain about working with Kathy Bates. Also, she was the director of Marry Me with Jennifer Lopez. She has been written her own short films and produce and direct. So talking about having somebody who can give us a real vision of what is directing, what is the difference between directing for television and directing for film, what is the future of directing, what it means to be a female director in a world that was being nominated and dominated by male director for solo. So I cannot wait to have this conversation with Kat Coiro. Thank you for tuning in, and let's start a new episode from Suarez Basement right now, right away. Here we go, hit it. Kat, I want to welcome you to my basement. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. I know we are all quite busy, and just to take half an hour of your time means a lot to us, to the students, to the audience. To be able to talk to you is fantastic.
Well, it means a lot to me. I love being able to share some of the experiences that I've had in this industry. And I'm just thrilled to be here.
Welcome. Listen, first, before we go to swimming in the pool, like I say, jump in the pool, congratulations. You are nominated tomorrow. Is that correct? For the DGA, which is the Director Guild Award.
Yes, tomorrow is the ceremony, and I'm nominated in the children's programming category for the Spiderwick Chronicles.
That is so excited. Oh, congratulations. Well deserved.
Thank you.
We will be watching to see what happened. Listen, tell us about that show in specific. How did you end directing the show?
Well, Spiderwick was so fun because I had a real connection to the idea of magic that exists in the practical world. When I was a little girl, my grandmother told me that fairies were real, and we would build little houses in the backyard, and we'd have to protect them against elves and gnomes. And I believed in these fairies genuinely for probably way too long. It's probably part of what got me into storytelling. And so the very first thing with that show was a personal connection to the idea that the veil of reality is thin and that there could be a world that we don't understand, just beyond what is considered normal. And that's something that I think is really important when going into any project is what is the personal connection? What is the hook? What is the thing that makes you able to dedicate hundreds and thousands of hours of your life to something? And if you don't feel passionately about one element of it, then it's going to feel like a job and not like the fun that working on this show was. This show had a lot of visual effects, but we really wanted them to feel organic and seamless. So one of the big elements of putting this show together was working really closely with the showrunner and with the VFX and the cinematographer. And we actually ended up referencing a lot of natural textures and, like the skin of a frog and what a flower petal looks like. And that's how we designed our creatures. But it's also something we introduced into the fabric of the show so that when the creatures came, they would feel very natural and organic.
That is fantastic. And you mentioned something that I say to my students all the time. And I think you nailed it when you say you have to have a personal connection. You cannot dedicate your life, basically, this amount of hours to work in television and visual storytelling if a personal connection is not there. In the case of the show, you mentioned that when you were a kid, your grandma really make you believe that these fairy tales really exist. So that is your personal connection right there. When you approach to a project, because again, we're going to talk about Matlock, of course, and your movies, how did you find that personal connection and how suddenly you decide, or when do you decide that visual storytelling was something that you want to work?
Well, I started off studying acting, and I did it in middle school, high school, college, and then I graduated and I started off as an actor. And I would go to sets, with a very hyper-specific role of being an actor. And the more I did that, the more interested I became in what was happening behind the camera. And I also really loved the idea of being able to take accountability. Sometimes when you're an actor, you watch something and you think it's going to be great and it's not, or you think it's going to be awful and it's great, and you don't really have that control. And so I started writing and just creating little shorts. Like my first short was on Funny or Die. And that really launched me. And I love being able to look at something and say, this is why it worked. This is why it didn't work, as opposed to just being a small piece of it. So the visual side of it really grew as I progressed from being an actor to being a writer. And I eventually ended up studying photography after I had made a few projects, because I realized that, where I was very strong with actors and very strong with storytelling, I wanted to know more about the visual side of it all.
Very interesting, because it's all about preparing yourself to it. So you are an actress. You are in visual storytelling in some of the other aspects of visual storytelling, and suddenly you realize, you know what? I want to be the one actually making the magic happen, taking the decisions from the acting point of view, from the cinematography point of view. For those who are listening, because we talk about directing, and we're going to talk about also directing for television and directing from film, because you have the chance to do both. What is, in your words, by your own experience, an easy, I would not say easy, but definition of what a director is? What is a director in your point of view?
I often think of a director as the conductor of an orchestra. And so I, as the conductor, understand all the different instruments. I know how they work. I have maybe played each one a little bit, but I bring the experts to me and I coordinate them and I communicate with them and I allow them to shine. And I think one of the greatest jobs of a director is to make all the artists on a set feel powerful and worthy and integral to the process. Because, I'm never going to know as much about production design as my production designer. I want her to feel empowered and to feel like, she's a huge part of this. And so it really is kind of bringing everybody in harmony, understanding their jobs, I mean, it's my biggest piece of advice to people is do everything. You cannot just come in and be a director if you don't know about how the actors work, how the writers work, how the, cinematography works, and the PAs. That you cannot make good projects without, all the people on a set, and having them feel like they're an important part of it is a huge part of my job.
And I think you also mentioned it is true, because as a director, well, it's a sense of leadership, right? You are, that's what it is. You are using the talent of many people, 30 to 40 to 100 people, depending of the project, and make them fall in love with the project, put the passion, the care, and the love, and that take a lot. You really need to be a good leader in order for people to get inspired by your own desire of that project. And that is fantastic. But you did say something that I think is so important to mention, is when students come to me and they want to jump, I'm going to put an example. Actually, I have a female student who graduated. She wants to become a director, and she have, I'm telling you, all the talent to become a great director. But the first job was a PA. Like a lot of all, my first job in HBO was a PA, and coffee and no coffee and tea and whatever it was, I was there, right? So she was there for 2-3 weeks, and then she's like, well, I don't know if this is for me. This is not what I want. I want to direct. And say, listen, you need to understand, you need to pick your duties. Not only that, when you become a director, people will have more respect for your work because you have walked the walk. This is not about like, oh, I jumped from a PA to now being a director. How important is, and you mentioned it, but I want to dig a little more into it, to walk the walk.
There is nothing more important. I say to directors all the time, go take an acting class. It's very easy to look at actors and judge them. And once you act, you will be so much easier on your actors. You will have so much compassion for what a hard and vulnerable job it is. Same with being a PA. I mean, I had the very similar feeling. I had a job when I was very young, and I remember they told me to go buy toilet paper, and I felt so despairing. I said, is this what it's all about? But I'm so grateful for those experiences. And I would say to your student, do both. Get the PA experience, learn how a set works, watch all the departments, and then go home and make a short on your phone, and learn what it feels like to be in control of the narrative. But definitely the best directors that I know, have worked their way through, and they do understand all the different jobs.
God, I'm loving this conversation so much. You are perfect for the conversation, because you're bringing all the things that I talk so much about it. The fact that technology is allowing us and our new generation of storytelling to really do their job. There is no excuse in this day. What I'm saying, when I start my career, the camera was a VH camera, huge. You have to go and buy it. And, it was a whole process. Today, you can film a whole film with your phone, which is incredible. Right. So for me, the person that come to me and say, well, I have this idea, but it doesn't execute the idea for a short film, for example. Well, I don't understand why not. Like, it's nothing that is stopping you, not only to produce, but also to distribute that idea. Right. Things are changing to a point where, like you say, I can be a PA at night, but I can go and work in my short film and really produce my short film. It's no excuses for you to don't do it. 20 years ago, that's a different story.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, just editing was so challenging. I remember way back in the day, trying to edit things, and you couldn't do it without serious technology. And I think there is fear that stops people. And, I always say that, perfect is the enemy of good. And when you're starting out, you have to just try things. You have to make things that might not be perfect. You have to have some failures. And I think sometimes people feel like the first thing they make has to be this savant-like work of staggering genius. And the truth is, That's not how you get good at something. If you start out playing an instrument, you have to start with the scales and you have to mess them up a lot of times. And I think there's a pressure with film to make it perfect at the beginning. And I always say, just start making things, even if you don't show them to anybody. Understand what it's like to tell a story. Make really short films and understand what it's like to edit it and what would you do different next time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And let's talk about the difference between directing for television. Again, you have the chance to do movies. You direct "Marry Me" with Jennifer Lopez, and which I can. We're going to talk a little bit about behind the scene, of course, of working with such a huge celebrity. But what is the difference? What do you think? And now you are directing Matlock, which is one of my favorite actors, Kathy Bates.
Mine too.
Oh, that is an actress in all the characteristics of what a good actor should be. So that is my question. What do you see is the difference between directing for a film, a blockbuster film, and when we're talking about television?
I don't really approach it differently. And, like I said, you find the thing that draws you to the project. In the case of Matlock, it was Kathy, but also that character. And our showrunner, Jenny Snyder-Erman, is such a genius in the way that she, makes a show that is a procedural, but also has all these deep layers of emotion and being a woman and being an older woman. And, so I approach it the same way I would a film. I just look at what hooks me in and what makes me obsessed with it. And there are so many things about Matlock that I'm obsessed with. Television moves at a different rate. It's very fast. With a show like that is so dialogue driven, you're not really looking for huge scopy shots or, big cinematic moments. You're really focused on the actors and on getting the words right. And, but I don't approach it differently. Like in terms of my notes and my preparation, I really look at it exactly the same way.
Let's talk about your own process. So you receive a script like Marry Me or the script of Matlock in this case. And how do you approach your creative process? You read the script twice at a time, you make notes. How that work?
I try to read it the first time without making notes and just immerse myself in it and find, like I was talking about with Spiderwick, what is the thing that I can really latch onto here in this script? With Marry Me, I ended up hiring a writer who I'd worked with before on the Mick, and she did a rewrite mainly for the Owen Wilson character, along with our amazing producer, Elaine Goldsmith-Thomas and Jennifer, who's a producer also. We kind of did a rewrite that tailored it to Owen Wilson. And then once I feel like the script is ready, I break down each scene. I work by starting with the transitions in and out of a scene. Like, where am I coming from? Where am I going to? And it's similar to the way an actor will approach, what was my moment before and what is my moment after? So visually, I love to start with those transitions. I feel that transitions can really elevate a project, especially when you're moving fast, like, on a broadcast television show. It's, to me, the transitions really take it from being good to great. I work very closely. I'm a huge collaborator, so I work very closely with my writer, my producer, my actors to kind of understand the scene. If there's something that's not working when I sit down and do my notes, I'll come to them and I'll say, hey, can we read through this? Can we find what we need to change? And I love working hand in hand with my cinematographer and just doing the shot lists together.
That's very cool. And you mentioned, I'm curious to know, so the audience can, it's true, television go in a very fast pace, especially because at the end, even when I put myself more in the artistic aspect of this visual storytelling, it's a business, right? So each episode have a cost and you have to, so for example, in the case of Matlock or any of the other shows that you work in television, give me a sense of time pressure. Like you need to produce, let's say, one episode a week. How that work?
Well, Matlock, for example, we shoot 8 days per episode.
Okay.
Um, the scripts are, I believe, around 60 pages. So we have days that are anywhere from 4 pages a day to 8 pages a day. And I've worked on shows where it's way more than that, like working on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and some of the shows like that where we shoot even more pages in a day. Being a responsible filmmaker is a huge part of working in television, because you are on a budget and you do have a responsibility to the studio and the network, and you want to make something great, but you also have to make it within the parameters of
Mm.
of the budget.
Right.
And so it becomes really important to plan out with your DP, how do we shoot this in a way that has integrity and honors the script, but also gets us through our day. And one of the big things in my process, and this is advice I give sometimes to people starting out in television, is, find the scenes that where you do need a little extra time, and understand, like, is it because it's an emotional scene? Do I need a little more time? Is it because this is a scene where I want some scope and I want it to be a little more cinematic? And if you pick those out in advance, then you can have scenes that you take a little more time with. So it's really all in the prep.
And I like to be a visionary in the sense that technology is moving so fast. And I do say to my students, I mean, it sounds like a broken record because I use this phrase all the time, but that they are really living in the second golden era of television, basically because of stream, right?
Yeah.
However, there is so much noise out there. How do you see, as actor that you are, director, a person that is literally surrendered by visual storytelling, and what is the future of? Yeah, it's a complicated. Tell me your future. but have you seen some time and think about, like, oh my God, maybe in 10 years? I put you an example. If I ask to my students in class how they consume media, the idea of a television in a living room, that doesn't exist. For example, they consume media through their phones or tablets or computers, and interesting, they watch a lot of YouTube. Don't tell me. I mean, what do you mean you watch YouTube? It's like, no, it's this YouTube series and this, like, those are changes that if we don't see them coming, if we don't evolve with the changes and the new generation, things, tend to disappear. So I do think sometimes to think about the future, right? In 10, 20 years, how we will consume, or what kind of stories we will want to consume. So what do you think?
Well, it's funny. I have teenage children, and so I am very familiar with the idea of them not really wanting to watch traditional television and watching YouTube. And I'll say, no, but guys, you have to watch movies and TV. It's what I do. And then I find myself also guilty of not watching things. But I will say, like, I went the other day to see a screening at the Television Academy of The Last Showgirl. And I was so grateful to be in a theater and seeing it on a big screen. And I thought Pamela Anderson was so revelatory. And I don't know if I would have felt the same way if I'd watched it on a small screen. It was a movie meant for the big screen. And it reminded me, right, we have to keep the big screen alive. I think one of the things that's been so thrilling about Matlock is there's something comforting in its traditional format and in the broadcast, way that it drops an episode every week or every couple weeks. And I think people do love the more traditional forms of media. But it is hard to break through the noise, as you call it. I don't have an answer for the future. I know for myself, I just have to keep reminding myself that it's so pleasant to go into a theater and turn off your phone and watch something all the way through and feel immersed in a way that when you're watching on your iPad on your bed with your phone next to you, you don't have. So it almost becomes a practice to kind of remind yourself how pleasurable that can be.
It is. It is. Well, again, I'm old school. I feel like going to the movies on a big screen is experience is completely different. And I'm a TV junker. I watch from reality shows
Me too.
to
Everything.
everything. But there is good television. I mean, I'm watching shows that blow me my in the way of the story, but also the production design.
Hmm.
It's like you're watching a movie. It's like
Yeah.
20 years ago, the budget for these things didn't exist,
Yeah.
and now you well, let's say an example, Game of Thrones. I mean, the production design of Game of Thrones is like how they invest so much money and time and effort in these things. Right? It's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we had the experience on Spiderwick of wanting to make it feel like a film. And we kind of always, we kept thinking, like, how would this look on a big screen, even though it's a small format television show? We got to see it once screened in a big theater, and it was so fun.
I'm sure it was also and now that you say that, that would be a good show to watch in the big screen for sure. I, I'm going to ask you the question, but you can have time to think about it.
Okay.
If you could direct your own film based in your own life, what would be the name of that movie? I'm assuming it would be maybe a rom-com, but what would be probably what would be the name of your own film? Think about it, and but when you think about it, let's give our audience a final thought, a final advice to all these future visual storytellers that are very eager to put their stories out there. What would be that?
Find collaborators. Do not try to operate as a lone genius in a vacuum. It is the friends and the people around you who inspire you and make you want to create things and lean on their talents. I always say to my children, if somebody makes you feel jealous, you should probably be friends with them. If they are so shiny and beautiful and have these gifts, like, don't make them your enemy, draw them in and work together. When I started off, I turned all my friends into colleagues and coworkers. And, I had a girlfriend who was a bartender, and she was so great with money and with dealing with people. And I said, come be a producer, on the first projects. And I built a little company of people I loved and wanted to spend a million hours with. And I think that sometimes people can think of filmmaking as, solitary. And I say, don't do that. Make things with your friends and be inspired by them.
I love that advice because collaboration is everything, especially in an industry like this one. So, what do you think will be the name of your movie?
Gosh, I love this question. The thing that came to my mind was nesting. I feel that I grew up in a very nomadic way. My parents traveled, we moved all the time. I never went to one school for very long. And I found myself now at this point in my life, as much as I tried to live a different kind of life, I'm recreating that pattern and I'm recreating it for my children. And so I have this huge desire to kind of stop that and nest and create, a very grounded home for myself. And it's a theme that I keep thinking about. It reminds me of Greek mythology, where they say this is going to happen, and then you do everything in your power to fight that, and then there you are, right back at the beginning.
It's
cool.
Actually, it's a very good name.
I like it.
Yeah. We need a tagline, but it's a good one. Kat, listen, your energy is contagious. I just met you today, but I can see that you are an incredible human being. Full of life and good things to tell. So I just wish you only the best. Hopefully more projects will go and we can see your work, which is fantastic. So thank you for the work that you produce for us.
Well, thank you. I think what you're doing is so important. And I feel like it's just so inspiring to see you giving so much to the young filmmakers. And what a great conversation. Thank you.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. And we will be in touch.